Welcome to Flat Earth Debate. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you have not done so already, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support this channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside the show and a link in the info box once the video has rendered. But most importantly, if you would like to join the debate, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click on the link in the info box below this video to join the discussion and express your views on the shape of the Earth. There are a couple of rules in the Hangout. Number one, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected. And if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. If you're in the live show at the moment, please share, as it does increase the live audience, of course, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show. And one last time, if you are new to the channel, or you have not done so already, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. And we are joined by Sleeping Warrior, so I'll say our first introduction. How are you doing, Sleeping Warrior? Good to have you here.
Good morning, how are we?
I'm okay. I can probably only hear about 20% of things though, so my ears, both of them are completely blocked up, so I can hear myself whining back as I talk, and I can't really hear much of what's being said, as you've experienced already before the show started. So yeah, might not be a great conversationalist today as I'm a bit ill, but other than that, I'm good. How are you?
Reasonable. I've had an interesting night. The heating went off, and it was freezing, so I've had to fix that now, and hopefully we've got the central heating back on, but other than that, we're good to go.
Cool. Excellent.
Just trying to keep an eye on things in the background, and it's not happening at the minute. Have you found any curvature yet?
I haven't found any curvature yet, no. I gave up looking probably about, I don't know, at least 2 years ago.
Oh no, I'm still looking. I'm happy to look. I'm doing the job of the ballers for them.
Oh yeah.
We should be fine. We should find this curvature if they keep talking about it. It should be there, man.
Should be there, but the surveyors don't see it when they survey the land and build the buildings.
I'm just wondering if anybody else has found any curvature out there, because they keep talking about this thing called curvature, but I'm not seeing any, to be honest. Must be because it's so big.
It's because it's nonsense, it's not there. I mean, if you take the Isle of Man as an example, you've got this landmass that's been surveyed, it's been built upon, and when they surveyed it and built it, they built to a flat plane. That's how surveying works. So for us to stand at a different shoreline at St Bees, look out at the Isle of Man and assume that it's going to curve away from us when the entire island has been surveyed as flat already is preposterous. I mean, one thing I would want to put out there to anybody who feels that there is curvature is to find a surveyor who's actually surveyed it. If there is curvature, it should have been captured and surveyed and documented. The reality being that absolutely never in history, ever, has any surveyor ever assessed the land as being curved. It's always flat. So if you're going to assume that we can use flat maps as representations of globes because surveyors use a datum to find their starting point, it's basically preposterous. What I would want to see is somebody who's actually surveyed the land, actually looked at it, showing me curvature. And that's never going to happen because there isn't any.
Yeah, we got a Yahoo in chat saying that Soundly idiots. So what's your view on Soundly with curvature?
You what? Did you ask me something?
Yeah, we've got a Yahoo in chat talking about Soundly, dude. And I'm like, are you serious? Do you have a view on Soundly, Nath?
Do I have a view on Soundly?
As a curve calculator guy capturing curve?
Well, I think he knows he's deceiving people. He's using software that would require him to have a knowledge of refraction to input those values into the software. So he knows he's deceiving people.
Yeah, I agree. I think he knows it. I think he knows it too. I think he's doing a pretty good job of it, because it does look persuasive until you remind people that it's 16 miles. And if the curvature was as pronounced as what he shows it, we'd all live on a basketball. The other thing I'd like to remind people is that even if this curvature did exist, the scale that they tell us that we live on is supposed to be that big that we can't even detect it, and Soundly manages to find it. So it's like, which one is it? Is it that it's so big we can't detect it, or is it that Soundly's got some kind of magic, fantastic camera that nobody else has got?
They say it's too big to detect, but it isn't. We've seen it modelled out. Chris modelled it for us and demonstrated it using the Isle of Man, admittedly. So you've got the Isle of Man as your base of observation, but the fact remains that he can still survey the land around it using that model and demonstrate, based on a sphere 24,900 miles in circumference, how much curvature would be observed. And the answer is some. In other words, surveyors should and must see curvature if we live on a sphere, but they don't.
So Ranty's saying in chat, oh Ranty, I hope you're keeping tabs on the background, Ranty. But I'm going to mention something in the background. For those of you that don't know, I'm currently back up in St Bees for a short break away, and I remember Miles the Liar Davis, and I call him the Liar Davis because he literally flip-flopped on his view against Ranty and called Ranty a liar. Knowing that he was flip-flopping and knowing that he wasn't taking the position that he previously had took. So I reference him as a liar because he always ranty an apology, and until he gets one, that's what he's going to keep getting called. But Miles the Liar Davis and Al Keir, they both came up to St. Bees recently to try and debunk me. Now, what I set up to, basically I was curious as to what they actually got when it came to certain things. And one of the things that I was interested in was the dioptra stats for height of the angle of the hill I'm on, because I was interested to see why it was that he didn't produce the evidence. He's disappeared off the face of the earth for all intensive purposes. He appears every now and again when he thinks people have forgotten about him, but we won't be forgetting about you, Miles. And every time I see your name, I'm going to call you on it, because I want A, you to apologise to Ranty, and B, to produce the evidence whether it goes in your favour or not. Because I'm back up here today, and I've already thrown a tape measure down, so I know the hypotenuse, and now I've got two different measurements for the angle for two different methods of measuring the angle to give me the trigonometry. And I'm really interested in knowing what was the scenario when you use your dioptra. So I don't believe that Miles didn't take a measurement for his angle, but I'd like to know what his evidence was. He's not producing evidence, and you guys are criticizing me for not producing my evidence. Well, I've gave you all an offer. I've said if Miles Davis and Al Kay release their evidence and Jeremy goes public with an apology for calling me a liar, I will indeed release my EXIF data. Because, to be honest, EXIF data is falsifiable. It doesn't benefit me to release it because it's falsifiable, but I will release it in any event if you guys do the same. And Jeremy does what he does, an apology, which he's obviously never going to do, so I'm never going to have to release my EXIF data. In any event, Miles went back to try and debunk me, and I'd like to know what he actually got with regards to that elevation and the angle. So if anybody's out there, mention it to Miles that I'm chasing him down, because I'd like to see what his evidence was, because it fully supports my position. And what I'm going to do in front of everybody that's in chat, I'm going to reassert my position, and not just reassert it for the second time because I've already done it once. I'm going to now reassert it both in regards of the elevation and with regards to the trigonometry, with regards to the hypotenuse and the measured angle, because it supports my position. So I am maintaining my position. I am bolstering it for a first time and bolstering it again for a second time, saying that 35 feet is right. Now, I know you guys don't agree with me, and you all think that it's like I'm on the moon or flying around on parachutes or whatever nonsense it comes up with. But the simple fact is, I can prove it to be reliable, accurate, and not wildly inaccurate. Now, I don't have to prove it. It's your assertion, and I'm not going to prove your assertion for you. But all I can prove now, if I have to, is that it's a decent elevation that's consistent with Google Earth. And I'm going to show it if you guys present the evidence. And that's what Miles has, that evidence. So I want Miles to produce that evidence, and let's see if we both get the same kind of stuff. Because it not only supports my position, it strongly supports my position if the two of us have got similar results. Because it is capable of being measured. It is capable of being calculated accurately. So I'm here now. I'm able to reproduce it. Miles has already been here. He's done the same kind of work. He must have the same answer. So let's see what Miles Davis comes out with.
It's a straw man.
Let's see what
He's not trying to debunk
with.
you. He's trying to debunk Google. So your assertion is simple. The values on Google are X and Y. That's it. That's your assertion. You're not claiming those heights are your heights, and we've never plugged in your measurements. They're not your
Correct.
claims, it's the heights on Google. So Miles is out to debunk Google, not you. He's not trying to debunk your claim, as you phrased it. That's not the case.
Yes.
It's a straw man.
So Zanar in chat says, wrong. You have to prove it, Anthony Riley. You did claim that you were at that height.
I'll say it again. Google put him at that height. Google. That's who has given the measurements. That's where the numbers have come from. That's where the numbers will continue to come from. That's what we have used. So it's not his height. He hasn't used his measurements. He hasn't released his measurements. Nobody knows what his measurements are. They've never been plugged into a formula. They have not been used. So at no stage at all have we used, quote, Anthony Riley's figures. We have used Google's figures. So for all those who say that the heights are wrong, feel free to debunk Google.
So a Stargazer Jim says that Al K measured. Great. So let's see the measurements, because I've also measured it. I know the hypotenuse, and I've got the measured angle, and I can evidence both. So I'd like to see what Al K measured, because it is important that we have the evidence released. Now, it shouldn't be me chasing Al. Al should be releasing it and saying, hey, Riley might be right here. Google Earth appears to be accurate. Now, it doesn't appear to be accurate. It is accurate.
Or the elevations, or the heights.
It supports it.
It's not accurate. I've got to drive this home. We are testing Google to see if we live on a sphere, because in many people's minds, or at least it was until we debunked it, it was the model of Earth, and that was quoted consistently. Now, we are told by the people on the opposing side of this fence, i.e. the people who think they live on a sphere, that Google is not a representative model of your Earth. So that's fine if you want to say that, but it seems the alternative is to go to flat maps, surveyed by people who observe a flat plane. So that's apparently what model you guys now want to use in lieu of Google, which is not an accurate model according to you. We have tested the Earth spherical model, and the representation given to us, the tools available to test it, are Google Earth.
Zana, read the whole comment. Nathan even interrupted you not to finish the whole sentence. You should prove it. No, Zana, you're completely misunderstanding the point. The assertion by the science fraternity is that we live on a ball. The working model is generally accepted until very, very recently. It's generally accepted to be that we have Google Earth as the working model. When we test Google Earth, it doesn't seem to comply or conform with the reality in which we're presented. So it's not my assertion to test your models, Anna. All I'm doing is seeing, can we see stuff that's supposed to be hidden? And we can see stuff that should be hidden. And when we test the elevation, Google Earth, rightly or wrongly, appears to coincide with what I was at. We can measure it. The height above water is exactly what Google Earth says, give or take a few feet. It's not 30 meters of indiscretion. It's like 3 feet, and it's often in our favor, depending on like the intricacies of the measurement of the angle. So, Miles, Al, you guys should really be releasing your information, because this is your science that we're testing. If it goes against your science, you should still release it. You guys shouldn't be putting pressure on me to release it, because I'm not having to prove or disprove your model. We're testing whether or not your model does what it says it does. Well, you guys believe it does, and I'm finding evidence that it doesn't.
So Darkstar says, but your height was taken from Google Earth, which is inaccurate, ? Well, that's for you to establish. We've taken the values because it's a representative model of Earth. Now, as I've said earlier, if you want to claim that the geoid is a representative model of Earth, we will point out that that geoid is used by surveyors and has a flattening factor applied to it. So if you want to use that as your model, that's fine too. It's laughable, but that's fine. To my knowledge, the only model that you can actually go in and have a look at is Google. That's one that has a practical application to look at your world. That's what it's for. On the other hand, the WGS84 is not designed to be used as a representative model to look at. It's used for surveying. And when you actually dig down into the details of what they survey and how they survey to a flat plane. And they take that geoid and completely flatten it to get their reference point to begin with. The starting point is from that geoid, which is flattened. However, from there on out, they survey to a flat plane. They level their transits. They don't observe curvature. So that's apparently your model, is it? A model that is used by people who don't observe any curvature, don't measure any curvature, don't build to curvature. That's your model. Well, fine, that's okay too. But as we don't take that to be a model of the sphere Earth, we would say that that is consistent with a flat plane. We would prefer to continue using something that definitely claims to be a spherical model, i.e. Google Earth. If you guys want to go out and debunk it, so do we. Good for you. Seems like you're on our side if you're criticising Google and its elevations and how inaccurate it is. Good, we're all on the same page. But we're not going to assist you in debunking a part of the methodology to disprove that the Earth is in fact a sphere when it is in fact flat. That's our purpose. This elevation straw man is nonsense. And the whole purpose of going down to test it is not to validate Google. It's to invalidate the claim that it's wildly inaccurate and puts Anthony over 100 feet in the air, which he isn't. That had to be debunked to our own satisfaction so that we know that in time people won't come along and do exactly that, but not just claim it and assert it, but prove it. We know that will never happen now. We don't have to prove our assertions are correct because they are not our assertions. They are Google's assertions. Anybody is welcome, like we have done, to go out and try and debunk Google. Feel free, be our guest. We'd love to see it. I'd love to see a great video from one of the ballers telling us all about how inaccurate Google is. Wonderful stuff. Lovely.
So now I see Miles the Liar Davis in chat. I'm going to call out Miles and Al K. I'd like to see your evidence for what you've measured for the height of the hill that I was on, the 35 feet one at the side of the caravans. Miles the Liar Davis, I'm here right now and I've measured it. So I'm pretty much absolutely certain that you would have done it too. And I'm pretty much certain that you haven't released it. And if you haven't released it, it can only be because it supports my position completely. Miles, you say it's in a video. Can you tell me which video it's in, please, and possibly provide a timestamp? In the meantime, I'm going to address Paul Voigt. Quote, at no time at all have we used Riley's figures. Well, isn't that being dishonest then? Using a known inaccurate source instead of accurate ordnance survey maps is being dishonest. Nath, do you want to address Paul or should I?
I don't see any levels bouncing. Did you ask me something? Sorry.
Yeah, Paul. Paul's quoting you saying, at no stage at all have we used Riley's figures. Well, isn't that being dishonest then? Using a known inaccurate source, what is that, Google, Paul, instead of accurate ordnance survey maps is being dishonest. So, Paul, Nath, do you want to tell Paul why it's not dishonest to do what we've done? Because Paul doesn't get it.
Earth is a representation of Earth. The flat maps are taken from a datum system used by surveyors. Those surveyors survey a flat plane. If you want to claim that those maps, the Ordnance Survey maps, are what we should use, then fine. Find me somebody who puts those maps into practical application and has found curvature, because they've got very precise instruments. Surely one of them would have found curvature if curvature exists. So find me a surveyor who uses the claimed model that you think you live on, a geoid Earth, a hypothetical thing. Find me someone who has used that and demonstrated and measured curvature. They've got all the tools in the world. They don't find curvature, they survey to a flat plane, and when they take the geoid that they get their initial reference from, they flatten it. So if you want to take that as your world, good for you. It sounds like you're well on the way to becoming a flat earther, Paul. Good for you, mate.
So, am I incapable of making my own arguments, Paul? No, I just know that Nathan likes ramming it down your throat, shoving it sideways into your gullet, and suffocating you as he rips his fist out your throat. I'm quite happy to address it. We haven't used any dodgy values, Paul. We've used your model, and your model basically is consistent with the height that above water that I'm at. I am more than happy with it. It seems to be accurate. It's measurable. It's repeatable. And I don't need to have Nathan respond for me. I just allow or I enjoy and allow Nathan destroying you with your own evidence, your own science, because he's got a really eloquent way of doing it. I enjoy listening to him when he starts ranting. It's therapeutic, Paul. So back to Miles the Liar Davis. Where's Ranty's apology, liar? Ranty's owed an apology, Miles. You haven't done it, but you've done videos since, apparently. Can we see the apology? Do you want to come on? Ranty's in chat. You can give a public apology for lying. What do you think, Miles? Are you going to come on? Or are you a coward? He is a pussy. Ranty, are you coming in?
What did you want?
You sound like Paul when you're asking for evidence. What? You sound like Paul when you're asking for evidence. Eh?
Because I can't hear you. I can't. What did you ask me? I'm really sorry. I'll tip my head to the speaker.
No. I was inviting Miles the Liar Davis in to apologise publicly to Ranty for calling you a liar and flip-flopping on his position when he literally had the totally opposite position at the beginning of the discussion, debate and disagreement. Ranty was in fact correct, which all originated from me asking him, were you sure it was that boat? It didn't look like it was a match for me. Ranty was like, what do you mean? And I said, well, the railings on the front of it don't match. Ranty agreed, made up an amendment to his video within maybe an hour or so. Miles called him on it for some nonsense reason, and then stood his position for weeks and weeks and weeks. He did hangout, video, really made Ranty into something that he wasn't. He made him into a liar, but Ranty was actually correct. And Miles carried on. And rather than stand up and say, do you know what, I'm sorry, I got this wrong, he carried on. And I'm inviting Miles to come on the panel, say to everybody that he is sorry, that Ranty was right, Miles Davis was wrong, and he shouldn't have carried on his pursuit. You'll be going out soon, so can't come in. Just wanted to know whether Nathan had realised Chris's maths was shit.
I
don't know how you can argue that his maths was shit, Miles.
You just put it into a model and applied the maths that was in the formula. The fact that the maths even has a flattening factor to it should be extremely concerning to anybody who thinks that that is their model, as it has a practical application, and in practical application, they flatten it. So how on earth you can even assume that it is in any way accurate to a globe Earth is beyond me. There's a formula to flatten it.
Miles, the formula was put into the program and it did the flattening for us, and it showed us the extent. But to pick you up on your 4 weeks, I corrected my position as soon as I knew I was wrong. No, Miles, you haven't corrected your position. And even if you have, we're calling you on calling Ranty a liar. But you publicly called him a liar in front of everybody, and you simply have not corrected your position publicly by way of apology. That is what you're expected to do when you call someone a liar. You haven't done that. Bruce, do you want to give us a shout?
Cheers.
Hey, Bruce.
Come on, try harder. That's not good enough.
Cheers. That's good enough for me. Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
I'm half deaf, so.
So come on, Miles. Come on and give everyone, give Ranty his public apology. You know, the public dissing that you gave him initially. Sure, he'll find some reason not to.
Are we going on Steve's show tomorrow or what? I've asked you guys twice and you've kind of given me a vague, show me a video from his channel and who is he and things like that, but you haven't said yes. And so far I've said I'll make sure that I'll get the guys on, and none of you have given me a yes or no yet.
Well, I'm what needs to happen?
Nothing, it's just a show. Just going to go on a show as a guest, that's it.
I can bring cheese and crackers.
Cool. I don't want to do it unless all four of you agree, basically. Unless all four of us are in agreement and want to go on, then I don't want to go on. I'm not going to go on a show on my own. I've got no interest in that. But what I am interested is in presenting Flat Earth proof on that channel. Whereas if you guys aren't interested in presenting Flat Earth proof to him and then debating it, which is what it'll be, he's going to have, I think he'll have GeoStreber and Rumpus on from what he's told me in email. So it's going to be a debate, but he's been gracious enough to say, yeah, come on and make your presentation. I'll give you an opportunity to make your presentation, and then we'll discuss it afterwards. It'll be fun, and I believe him.
Oh, no, it will be fun. I didn't realise it was more of a debate. I thought it was a debate with him and his friends rather than GeoStreamer. But
Well, him and his
I mean,
friends is GeoStreamer. You know, that's his mate. As far as he's concerned, he wants to
I didn't
bring
realise.
the most appropriate people. And I would do the same if I was in his shoes. I'd say, who has been involved in this discussion? Well, Rumpus. He would be my absolute first choice. So when he said Rumpus would be there, I was like, great. Worthy adversary. I don't know about GeoStreamer, but certainly Rumpus. Wonderful.
Well, as a flat Earth proof in itself, yeah, sure, I'm happy for going on. Not a problem with it. But Ranty's not in chat. He's in chat, isn't he, Ranty? You'll have to get a yay or a nay off Ranty. But I'm up for it because even if it's Island or not, they've still got to explain Mackle Lighthouse.
Sure.
So yeah.
Well, Ranty will maybe give us an answer. I'm watching the chat flow by, so maybe he'll say yay or nay from the chat. Who knows? But ultimately, it's a team effort on our part, and I'd like it to continue that way. So if we're going to go on and chat to them, it's nice to be able to have all aspects of what has happened and how this flat Earth proof has come to pass. But I want all of the story.
Darkstar says, formal debate rules, no interrupting. You better tell Geo that. He's not very good at that one. Paul Boyd,
I don't think it will be a debate. I think that might be a misspeak on my part. So certainly in the phraseology that he's used, he hasn't suggested that it's going to be a debate. You know, it's not going to be that format as such. But we will end up debating each other. There's absolutely no doubt about that. I'm in no doubt that we'll end up in a discussion that would be, by some, called a debate. But I don't think it's going to be particularly that format as such. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think so.
So Captain Bullshit says, admit you're a dumb cunt for thinking Ireland can be seen from St. Bees. Well, here's the thing though, Captain Bullshit. If you look at the video, there is land evidenced in the video at 35 feet. That land shouldn't be there because we live on a ball and all of that land should be behind it. All of it. So, no. That land, whatever that land is, if it is Isle of Man, shouldn't be there because it's behind the curve of the ball. Ireland probably shouldn't be there because that's also behind the curve of the ball. But there is some land there, so it's working out what that land is and then working out how non-curved we are on your own science. So, no, Captain, that's not the way it is. You perhaps have ignored the curvature factor. Paul Butt makes an assertion without any evidence whatsoever. Paul, where's that email from the council worker? Been asking you that now for like days. On top of the molten iron evidence of iron being conductive and self-perpetual at molten states. I mean, that's another one that we're waiting for you on, Paul. I assert that you were at 35 meters, and I assert that you were at the top of the hill. Don't
swear?
like that. Prove me wrong. You can't. Of course, I can, Paul. I've got the evidence to prove you wrong right now. I'm waiting for you guys to prove the assertion wrong.
Got Lottie saying, first warning, Sleeping Warrior, no swearing. Did you swear?
I read Paul's comment. Oh, might not have been Paul's.
Fair enough. That's contextual, I suppose.
Does the top of the hill get them away from the curvature? There's no way.
No, the top of the hill doesn't. But we're not interested in the higher height. We're interested in the lower height that still shows the same stuff. That land should be missing by the curvature by some way, and we see it. So even if it's Isle of Man, there's
but I'm saying if you're at the top of the hill, this does not disprove anything.
Well, we used the composite from the top of the hill to try and help us with the land identification. But you can argue with the
if you were, because he's contending that you were at the top of the hill. Is that what he's contending?
Sure. There were two videos taken. The public one that I released originally, which was at 35 feet, we see land that should not be there. And I was asking, was it Scotland? Was it Ireland? Was it Isle of Man? Because I don't know what that land was, and I still don't know what that land is. But that land should not be there. There should not be any land there because of the curvature of the Earth.
Absolutely.
The second video was taken because I saw the floaty land, so I went up to the top of the hill to see what else I could see, and I just panned around. We created a composite picture from that, and then from that composite, we started arguing about how much curve there wasn't. And then the reality became we focused on the composite for weeks and weeks and weeks. But that derived from the original observation, which was what's the land here at 35 feet that we shouldn't see. So we kind of lost track a little bit, but point is, we see land at 35 feet that should not be there. Why is that? And the answer is because it appears to be flat, and they don't like it.
Maybe I should just give some clarity. I don't know. Don't know if I'm going to get it in
Maybe
the neck
not.
from Sleeping Warrior to do this. The bottom line is the composite has been brought into question, not in terms of whether or not it disproves the globe or proves the Earth is flat. That is absolutely unequivocally still the case. It is going to become a much stronger flat Earth proof as a result of what has transpired from Rumpus's hard work. And I and Chris have both tipped our hat. However, Ranty and Anthony are still looking at it and examining it in detail. So at the moment, the image that is being used, or sorry, the composite that's being used is still being studied. In other words, we're not going to start to make further assertions if we aren't in agreement. That's the basic position. So from that perspective, we still have the original observation, which Anthony's obviously happy to point out till the nth degree, that there's many, many flat Earth proofs in that are still absolutely sound and solid. So in terms of the composite, we will eventually, I don't know when, hopefully in the next couple of days, come to an agreement. And then we'll move forward with that. In the meantime, yeah, we're not going to lie. We are looking at it. We are at odds. We are in a disagreement. But that's how things progress. If there were no disagreements, this would be called a circle jerk. Yeah, you're right, Anthony. Tap, tap, tap. If something comes along that's better, then I'm going to assess it and say, I think that's better. And that's pretty much exactly what we asked for. So we put out our assertions and said, debunk it. Show us how it's wrong. And that's what's happened. Great. That's science. That's progress. Wonderful. If it means that I have to cap in hand say, humble pie, I was wrong, I will do it. It's not a pride issue. What I want to be is right. That's it. And if along that journey we are wrong, we will be wrong many, many more times in our lives. You know, having a bit of humility is what is needed if you're going to debate something. There's going to be points you get wrong. That's life. But for me, in the long run, all I'm interested in is what we present as a flat Earth proof, as opposed to a heliocentric debunking, is accurate and cannot be debunked, cannot be pulled apart like we do on these debate shows. So there's a few people saying, why haven't you published it to Nature magazine? Well, as it stands, what we have done is debunked the globe. That's not going to change. You know, we're not going to go back and ask people to remove QED videos. On the contrary, I will still encourage people to go and watch them, because what people will see in those videos is the heliocentric model completely get obliterated. So there's a guy in the comments earlier that said, our model predicts this. No, it doesn't. Your model predicts the things in the image aren't there. You have band-aid theories to get around it. And when we reach a consensus between the four of us, we will be in a position to present an alternative model. So here's where the globe falls apart. It predicts things are not there, and yet we see them. Here is the flat Earth model, and it predicts we can see things at these distances and heights and elevations, distances, etc, 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 and you can test it. Up until now, we haven't been able to present that because we haven't had a perfect scale. Now we have. That's the bottom line. In my opinion, this is contentious amongst ourselves. So until we reach consensus, that's why it's slowed down. People are probably looking at the debate going, why aren't you on and on about the Isle of Man like you were? Well, it's because we're looking at it off camera, discussing it in fine detail, and want to reach a consensus. And when we do, that's when we will move forward. And things will step up a gear at that time. For the people who are observing, you'll see how much stronger it becomes as a direct consequence of this. But that's true with anything. If you put it out for scrutiny, it gets scrutinised and pulled apart. You can then look at how it's been pulled apart and make it better. That's the whole point of debating things. So that's what we've done. And again, I will do it right now. Rumpus, excellent job. I tip my hat to you, my friend. You stepped up where everyone else didn't. Good for you. We've taken your information and used it. Thanks.
Yeah, I'm going to get a bit of noise in the background at the minute because the dogs and stuff. But Sleeping Warrior, why are you being dishonest and claiming you were at 35 feet, but using a composite from 35 meters? The composite was used to help us identify the land. So if we can see land at low elevations that's supposed to be behind the curve, and you have the option of going higher and seeing more of that land because it's less refraction, then it makes sense to use the better model. But that doesn't mean it's dishonest to use the bigger model. We're not claiming that we were at the 52 meter height. We gave you 52 feet from 35 feet, but we were using the composite to help us identify the land. Secondly, the answer is that you were not at 35 feet. Are you stupid? Paul, I've asked you for evidence to support your assertion that you got something from the council worker telling us that's blah blah blah. Because I'd like to ring that council worker live on air and challenge him and ask him, did he get his units wrong? Because there's no way on earth that it's 35 feet. No, it's measured. We can test it. We have done, and I'm happy with 35 feet, Paul. I know you're not happy with it because it shits all over your argument, doesn't it, Paul? But the simple reality is, we have measured it. It's consistent. Not our claim, but we can prove that it's not wildly 30 meters inaccurate. So there we go. There's the answer to your two questions. I'm going to go and get these dogs out, so I'll be straight back. One sec.
Do a quick link. If I can muster the energy. Hope you're enjoying the debate thus far, mostly from keyboard warriors. If you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth debate. If you would like to support this channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside the show while it's live, and a link in the info box once the video has rendered. Most importantly, if you would like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently listening to, then click the link in the info box to join and express your views on the shape of the Earth. There are a couple of rules. Number one, don't swear. If you do, I'll eject you, and if you are ejected, please don't try to rejoin using socks. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please share the show, as sharing increases the live audience, of course, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show. And one last time, if you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth debate. There's about an hour and a half left on this stream. So what do you know, Bruce? You still there?
Yeah, did you used to do 2-a-days?
I did, but then somebody pawn bombed the channel, and when they did that, it increased the workload of each show by quite a bit in terms of what I do before and afterwards to set it up and to actually publish it on the main channel. So although my channel didn't get taken down, it just meant I couldn't live stream on Nathan Oakley 1980, and still can't for another 6 weeks or so. So while that's happening, I now stream on this channel, which is Nathan Oakley, just Nathan Oakley without the 1980 and a space between Nathan and Oakley, but just my backup channel, basically. So if you're not subscribed to this channel and you don't realise that you're not subscribed, it's not my main channel. This is the backup channel, which is just used for streaming. So the videos get taken down as soon as the live stream ends, and then I put them back up on the main channel. So that they accumulate the majority of the views on there for the people who've subscribed and want to keep up to date with the Flat Earth debate on there. They just don't get to see it live, which for all the people in the super chat that were donating to me, that's almost completely dried up, which is a bit of a shame. But there we go, that's life. So hopefully within about 6, maybe 8 weeks, I'll be back on the main channel and it'll be easier. And I may well do two a day again. But since then, I've done a couple of shows on top of doing the debates, and even then, just too heavy a workload, basically.
No, and I do appreciate it. So, but it is great for the Americans. But I know how hard a work it is.
Yeah, I couldn't do it at all yesterday. I mean, I was ill yesterday, but so was my daughter. So, I mean, I've actually been ill for about 2 or 3 days, just getting progressively more ill and losing more and more of my hearing. But
I hate to say it, I'm glad to see they spray it on you guys as well as spraying it on us, because we just recovered ourselves.
Yeah, what do you mean by the chemtrails? I mean, we get it a lot heavier. I mean, we get it particularly heavy in the UK. It's very, the chemtrailing is extremely heavy here. A few times when people have travelled over from other countries, Patricia Sear in particular got here and was aghast at what the chemtrailing was like, because I think in the States people see the chemtrailing and it's like, look, there's a chemtrail. Or look, they've put down a load of chemtrails. It's like, here, well, no, they'll do it all day. You know, you don't see anything but chemtrails at sometimes. And if there's no wind, you see them like lines in the sky, and there's dozens and dozens and dozens of them. So, yeah.
What's disturbing about that is there's way too many, chemtrail activists that use the globe as their motto, and it drives me just batty.
How do you mean, as their motto?
As their logo. Chemtrail alertness always has kind of a globe, and then the chems going around it, and they really need to come to terms with the fact that the world is flat. I think it's a natural for the chemtrail movement and the flat Earth movement to come together on this.
Yeah, one deception's as good as the next.
Because, yeah, oh, absolutely. And then we could all convene. But, you know, we're all looking up at the skies. These are two particular groups that are intent on looking up in the skies right now.
Think you were not more content to be looking out to the horizon? That's kind of a Math Powerland point. So he would say
Yeah.
that for all the people
Yeah.
pointing their telescopes at the sky, stop, point it at the horizon.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I really get into knocking down general relativity in the solar system and heliocentrism. So it's maybe more mysterious to look up in the stars. But he's got a point.
What should go to then to debunk heliocentricity?
Well, we never get a fair shake at Venus and Mercury not being able to be seen in the night sky, or whether we're facing Jupiter or not. Every time we pose that question, they just go through all sorts of obfuscation and trying to, elude from the point.
Go through it. No one's here to challenge you. Just people in the chat. Keyboard warriors only. Oh, I'd take the opportunity and just go through why you would use Venus to debunk the heliocentric system.
Say that again. You want me to?
So, there's no one here to challenge you. However, if I was to say to you, the world is a sphere, obviously we have orbital mechanics and it's all been worked out. How on earth would you assume that it was anything else? What would be your reply and how would it involve Venus?
Well, Venus and Mercury are in the inner rings, if you will, or they follow, their orbit is between us and the sun. So the only time you should be able to see them is in the daytime when that side of your Earth is facing the sun. Yet we see it in the nighttime. And don't give me this just at dawn, just at sunset. They're in there all year long and they stretch pretty far into the night sky. You should be facing completely opposite the sun, Jupiter, all the time. And then for Jupiter to be in the sky all night, all year long, I mean, you're supposed to be on the other side of the sun. The sun is massive. You're supposed to be on the other side of the sun. And on the dark side of the Earth, you're facing completely opposite directions, 180 million miles apart from your two peaks of your orbits. And Jupiter is in your sky all year long. And all the same constellations are in your sky all year long. You never see any different parts of space.
I'll listen to it on the re-up because I didn't hear a word of that. I'm asking the chat if they can hear. I hope you're coming through clearly. Great example. Yeah, I'm sure it was. Can you hear him okay, Sleeping Warrior? I can't check the mic levels and check if people can hear you clearly. I'm really sorry. Is he coming okay?
No, it's probably me. It's probably me. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Whatever. I didn't hear that either. But yeah, I'm sure that the audience can hear you. John Watson saying audio's okay, so great. I'm sorry I interrupted you. I just don't want to cock up because I can't hear much.
That's a shame, though. Do I need to get closer?
No, you're fine. It's me. It's definitely me. I'm just checking that the audience can hear you. I can see your level bobbing up and down and stuff. It's just I can hear little bits coming through like the sun, and then I'll hear Jupiter, but I can't put together all of it as a sentence. But I'm sure you. I want to hear it again on the re-up. So once it's uploaded and I can hear stuff, I'll go back and listen to what you actually said. And yeah, great.
That's fantastic.
So I'll just pick it up on that. The Jupiter comment. I agree. We should see the stars in a variety of different positions every night to do with the orbit of the sun, the rotation of the Earth, and obviously the orbit of the sun around the center of the cosmos that it's supposed to be orbiting around anyway. We should be seeing different parts of the sky throughout the whole year because we are looking in different angles all the time. We don't see it. It's one of the biggest proofs.
And the spatial relationship, between the stars that make a constellation, for example, the reason it makes a constellation is because it all moves in unison. The spatial relationship between those stars never have changed, ever will change. They don't change. They move in unison as if they're all on a plate together.
Yeah. I mean, one of the most interesting things about where I am currently, Scott Veach says in chats that these guys have never looked up, evidently. Well, it's funny he says that because last night I was looking up and I was taking long exposure of the night sky with the P900. And because where I am at the minute is very rural, there's no major cities, no major traffic, no cars, no lights, no nothing. It's very dark. You can see a lot of stuff in the night sky that you would never see ordinarily, like hundreds more stars. Now, if you look really carefully, not do you only see stars, you see what looks like straight line lattice work in the sky. It looks like there's some kind of structure in the sky that's holding the stars up.
Like a web?
Yeah, exactly like a web. But instead of web being like concentric web circles coming out of the center, it looks more like Hessian. Like tartan colored. It's like straight lines, like intersecting.
Sounds amazing.
Yeah, it's astonishing. And it's like, whoa, this is crazy. And the first time I saw it, I was like, what on earth am I looking at? I thought it was light pollution. Then I thought maybe it's something to do with the like northern lights, maybe. But it appears to be straight lines in the sky. And it's the most incredible thing to look at because there are no straight lines in the sky on their model. So it appears that I'm looking at something that's not explained on their model or we're not meant to see, which makes me wonder why there's so much light pollution. Perhaps they do it intentionally to make us not see stuff that we would ordinarily question.
Has anyone else acknowledged it?
Nick
It was
from
my missus.
Phuket Word once caught it on his camera. I've got, what's his name again? Same guy, son of an astronaut. I scrolled off my screen now. M. Scott Veach said, that's the celestial web.
I thought it was the World Wide Web.
I've never heard that term. Have you heard that term before?
No, I think he's trolling us with that.
Okay. Well, to answer your question, Bruce, Nick from Phuket Word caught something similar with his camera.
Fascinating.
Yeah, you can see it. You've just got to get yourself away from the street lights, as it were. Anything that's got like an artificial light that's near us. Just let your eyes focus on the backlight of the sky, and you can see stuff that's like you think the sky's black, and it doesn't appear to be black. It appears that you can see things that are not meant to be there, or certainly they don't want you to see. It is incredible.
That reminds me
of something. It's gonna be. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say I've got a scope that I don't use since having a kid. It's at the mother-in-law's. Do you want it?
Who?
You.
Yeah, send it to me.
You can take it to some bees.
I have a 70mm one. How big is it?
7.5 inch. Big.
Do you know what the zoom is? The measured zoom on it.
I haven't got the box next to me.
Beggars can't be choosers.
Well, I already have one. You see, it's
okay.
a 70mm one, and it claims to be 160 optical zoom, which compared to the P900 is nearly double. Nearly double. But in real world, when I've come to use it, it doesn't appear to be double. It appears to be like about the same. So I don't know what they're measuring these things with, but it appears that the P900 is a little bit better than the telescope. Now, I mean, I paid about £100 for it, but the P900 is better. Don't know why, just is.
Okay. Well, you'll have to send me a picture and we'll compare telescopes. See if mine's better. I don't know. It's not here to check all the specs on it.
I'll show you mine.
Whoa.
You show me yours. I'll show you mine.
Yeah, that's it.
I'm sure mine's
I'm gonna throw this reminded me of something. Though I'm gonna throw a bone. Maybe some rounders can jump on this one because
excuse me.
I don't quite understand it. The argument on the angular size of the sun being impossible to match up with a flat Earth model.
Good times for all. Are you asking ballers or are you asking flat earthers?
I guess I'm asking you. Well, yeah, you got Riley's one of the best, I think, or both of you are. So it's been posed to me a lot on Twitter, and I think I've, fumbled through it and kind of made an understanding, but I'm new to angular size and how that formula works. So
well, when you apply the formula, it kind of debunks the whole notion that the stars are as far away as what they tell us they are, because the formula relies on having either a known distance, which we don't have, or a known size, which we don't have, a known diameter, which we don't have.
Exactly. Right.
But the bowlers argue that you don't need to have the distance or the actual size. You just need to know what the size of the angle is. And that's not measuring the angle. Measuring the angle is different to calculating the angular size, because measuring the angle is simply measuring, whereas calculating the angular size relies on the measurement of distance or actual size, of which they know neither. So the whole question about how far away the sun is, how far away the moon is, it's nonsense, because you don't know how big they are, because you have no concept. There's nothing to cross-refer them to other than themselves. So you can
Right,
obtain
and
a
the debate seems to get muddied down with this: does the sun change size or not? And that doesn't seem to be where the core of the debate is.
Right. So if you look at Good Times for All on his channel, he did a test where he got a LED lamp, and he got it from a distance, and he brought it closer and closer and closer. And what he noticed is that sorry, did I drop off then?
No, you're good.
The screensaver came on. What Good Times for All noticed was that it only changed its angular size, the LED light, when he was right on top of it. In the gap between being too far away for it to be seen very well and being right on top of it, that bit in the middle, it made very little to no difference whatsoever. So the argument for the angular size sun is a logical one, but evidently it doesn't stack up, because when you test the evidence, the angular size appears to be the same when it's like in the middle band of, say, 75% of the total distance that you're measuring. So if you're right on top of it, yeah, it's a lot bigger. If you're miles away from it, it gets a lot smaller. But the bit in the middle, you can't really tell any difference, because
also coming from the top doesn't takes away from the effect as well, too, right? Rather than being eye level with the thing that's going further away from you or whatever we're testing, coming from the top as the sun would, you don't see a lot of angular perspective changing or alteration from coming from the top. From what
I don't know, I know that our atmosphere changes that which we see, because when you go into a high altitude balloon, you look at the size of the sun and the moon, and they're tiny compared to what they appear to us on the ground. I mean, the moon looks like a big substantial plate in the sky. That's probably the best description.
Right, and that's atmosphere. I'm talking this one proof where you see two ping pong balls, and you get a lot more of the effect from looking at eye level rather than looking at those two ping pong balls at a distance, but from 4 feet up.
Sorry, say that again.
I'm failing in this description. So there's two ping pong balls on the ground. And if you get right behind one, obviously one's going to look really large, one's going to look really small in the background. But as you go up, that effect stops as you rise.
Right. I think it's fair to say that our atmosphere is a lens. I know that Rob Skiba
that's the water in the atmosphere and everything, I would say.
Yeah. And on that basis, it means that it's straight away distorted. Whatever's going on in our atmosphere is changing what really is going on. Rob Skiba showed it with the Lake Michigan thing that he did. He showed that there was a couple of buildings in the background that were huge and that should have been tiny. They were miles away, but they should have been tiny relative to the boat that was in the ground, in the foreground, and the background buildings were significantly bigger than what you would expect them to be, subject to just the laws of perspective in terms of the what's it called? The further away it goes, the smaller it becomes. It seemed to be magnified. So I think that we see our own, whatever we see is distorted to our eye by our atmosphere that we live in. And you can see the best evidence of that is when you go into a high altitude balloon and you look across and see the moon, and it looks like a pinprick. It looks like a pea compared to a coin.
Yeah, what's his name was blowing my mind the other day. I'm sorry, I forgot his name right now. But when he was talking about the moon being a hologram within our eye and how it moves away from you all the time, that was fascinating.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with that particular reference, but I do agree.
Do you remember that, Nathan? It was like 2 debates ago. It's he's friendly, and he's one of your dialect. Oh man, do you guys remember this? He was talking about the moon. They were having a heated discussion about the moon, and
were you on about Chris Monk?
No, because Chris Monk's the American. And they were telling him, if it's a hologram, what's it being? What's it being? Arwen, there you go. Yeah, and he was saying it's being projected in your eye. Our eye is doing it.
Well, me and Arwin don't always see eye to eye. The difference between me and Arwin is that if he says something I disagree with, I can agree that he might. I can agree to disagree with Arwin. I can say, well, Arwin thinks blue is blue, and I don't necessarily think blue is blue. I
Well,
think it's lilac.
I just thought it was an interesting concept. I never heard anyone
Sure.
pose that before. I was like, that's fascinating.
It is interesting, but it's difficult to prove. Now, I do like Arwin, but we don't always agree. But Arwin doesn't agree with when Arwin doesn't agree with me, he gets angry. Whereas when I don't agree with him, I don't get angry. Sneaky Pete, are you there?
Come in, Sneaky.
Hey, Sneaky, can you hear us? We're on mute at the moment.
No, he's got to speak. I waited too long for him to respond, and I thought it's too risky. So you got to speak if you're going to join, because otherwise we think that you're a troll and you're coming in to disrupt. Nathan Oakley, how are the super chats going along? How
Terribly.
Hope you are
Hit that
getting
super chat,
support
people.
from your...
I need medicine.
You got a stream deck though. Forget medicine, dude.
Yeah, the Stream Deck does make me feel much better.
Yeah.
Nice and warm and cozy.
Shout out to those that sorted out the stream deck. Your friends in YouTube, your friends on YouTube, was it, Nath? Is that
Your friends in FE it was marked
Which we
from.
think is...
I got an anonymous gift for those watching that don't know what we're talking about. So about 3 days ago, I came in. Well, I was actually in the shower, and the postman came, and I opened the door to him, naked with a towel around me, and took a box off him. And inside that box was a Stream Deck, and there was a note attached saying, "Here's a Stream Deck. Hope it helps you in your flat Earth endeavours from your flat Earth friends." No name, nothing, handwritten. I've no idea. I've asked several people. There's only a handful of people who've got my address, so I don't know how it's been posted to me, but it's been posted to me. Whoever sent it, I am eternally grateful. Thank you so much.
Was it? Can you tell whether it was male or female handwriting? Was it neat and legible, or was it typically male?
I could read it, so yeah, it's definitely legible. I'm guessing it looked like more female than male. That's why my first guess was Patricia, and I asked her, and she was like, no. But the post stamp was from the UK, so I don't know who it was from.
Well, it appears that although it wasn't a super chat donation, it was significantly more than a super chat donation. But to answer your question, I guess they're drying up a little bit because he's not been plugging them. And at the minute, everyone hates him because he keeps battering ballers in the corner when they keep coming out with nonsense, and he asks for evidence for it. And he doesn't allow them to obfuscate away from the point in hand. So the reality is, it appears, well, he's not that liked at the moment with the ballers. I think that's a fair comment. I don't think he'd disagree with that. But I think in time they'll realise that the Earth is not as spherical as what they say it is, and Nathan was in fact correct. So,
I
still can't get onto Skype on this computer.
While you're fiddling, I'll do a quick plug. So we have approximately 1 hour left on this live stream. Hope you're enjoying the debate thus far. If you're new to the channel, or you've not done so already, because this is my backup channel, so subscribe if you're only subscribed to Nathan Oakley. So yeah, hit the bell notification icon and you'll keep up to date with these live debates. Most importantly though, if you'd like to join the show, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box to join the discussion and express your views on the shape of the Earth. There are a couple of rules. Number 1, please don't swear. If you do, I'll eject you, and if you are ejected, please don't try to rejoin using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also hit the super chat because it's dried up completely. And if this is on the re-up, there is a link in the info box below the video. One last time, if you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth debate. There is approximately 1 hour left on this live stream.
So, Bruce, are you there?
I'm here.
What's your position then? Are you on the fence, undecided? Are you on the ball side?
Oh God, are you kidding me? No.
You're definitely on the flat side.
Absolutely.
Do you think that gyroscopes? How strong do you think the gyroscopes argument is in favor of flat Earth?
I mean, it's rock solid, but nobody understands gyroscopes is the problem. They shun away right away.
I agree. It's a rock solid argument. If gyroscopes, Truth Seeker, you there? Gyroscopes. Truth Seeker, you there?
Can you hear us?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yeah, very clear for a change. Yeah, very clear for a change.
Oh, good. Okay.
You're feeding back though, so I don't know if you want to mute your watch page if that's what's causing the problem.
Yes. Sorry about that. I went ahead and muted that. I was wondering if I could just ask general question, like kind of a few general questions, if that would be okay.
It's whatever you
Do
want.
what you want, my friend. It's an open channel.
Okay. Because I have actually been talking with Arwen. I've been Skyping with Arwen, actually, your buddy. And I think he's, I've actually talked with him a little bit and developed a little bit of friendship with him. I think he's a pretty cool guy, actually.
Are you
Yeah.
Pete?
What's that?
Are you Pete?
I am. Sorry. I couldn't get in with Pete.
No worries.
Yeah.
No, I know who you are now because Arwen does mention you, and he said the same. He says you're a really good guy.
Yeah. And really, I'm just trying to actually get a picture kind of the flat earth. He was telling me that there wasn't a consensus on the flat earth amongst people that consider themselves flat earthers. I don't know if
The
that
consensus is that we are not on a spinning ball.
okay, so that's kind of like that's the biggest general consensus. Is that what that is?
That is absolutely it. And I think at its heart, because we, haven't had the ability to prove what the real model is, at its heart, it is a critique.
Okay. So, all right. So,
But we can prove without a doubt that we are not on a spinning ball.
and I think you guys do that with the Isle of Man. Is that correct?
Amongst other ways.
Amongst other ways. So, one of the things I don't think I'm up to speed on is because I've watched a few of your broadcasts and I think they're interesting, but I'm not up to speed on is what about the Isle of Man? How are you making your I don't want to, ambush you here with this at all, but how are you making your measurements? Are you guys kind of going physically out there and looking physically at the Isle of Man and, kind of seeing those things? Or are you guys using Google Earth and using some of these things and trying to make calculations that way?
You want to do that, Sleeping Warrior, or do you want me to address that?
You feel free.
No, so we're plotting in the values from Google Earth in order to debunk that the world is a sphere. And to date, that's all we've done. So we've presented a model of a sphere and shown what that sphere should show and what we actually have in real world from a photograph. So the sphere model demonstrates that things that we see should not be there. Now that's not actually a debunking because they do have a band-aid theory to go with that, which is refraction. So that is acceptable. Okay. In other words, while I can ridicule it and belittle it and make it sound farcical, that is still an acceptable explanation for if you live on a globe. No, we can't see them physically, they're not there, that is a fact. However, we have refraction, therefore it brings them back into view. That's the explanation. But the model physically shows that they are not there. What we will have, we don't currently, is a working equivalent on a flat plane. That to date has not been demonstrated. We have not been able to show that now, or not this second now, but in the very near future, we will be able to demonstrate that. So rather than having a model of a world, which is a sphere, which we can show does not work, we will be able to show how that does not work and how it works in reality with a working model. So that's the next step forward.
Okay, cool. That actually sounds plausible. That sounds sorry, I'm missing for words here, but that sounds
Take
like
your
you
time.
guys are, what's that?
Take your time, relax.
Oh, sorry.
He sounds about as relaxed as he could be, actually.
Yeah.
That sounds that sounds like you guys are trying to use a scientific method. So that sounds respectable.
Well,
Yeah,
yeah,
we're
this
trying.
is
I
this
mean,
is what it boils
you
down
have
to,
to
depending on how you
where
want
we
to
are.
look at it. One way of looking at it is that we've made assertions that have been proven incorrect. As yet, we have not conceded that. I am pretty certain I will have to concede at some point, but not before everyone is in agreement. I don't want to concede something that people aren't agreeing with me we should be making concessions for. But in my own mind, I've made those concessions and kind of alluded to having to eat a bit of humble pie. But as I've said before, I would much rather be proven wrong in the short run so that I am correct in the long run, regardless of how much humiliation or ridicule comes along with that. Because if we were to make those assertions and stand by them as fact, in time they would be debunked anyway. The fact that it's happened rapidly is just great. It's quicker progress. But yeah, that's what the scientific method is. You have to be in a position where you can be falsified. And we have been. We've opened up what we have presented to be falsified and on a debate platform and said, debunk it. That's the whole point. So yeah, it is the scientific method. That's what we're aiming for.
That's
Yeah, plus
interesting. That sounds proper. That sounds very proper. If I could ask you a question, because I don't know everything about this, and I'm going to call it a phenomenon. I don't want to offend anybody, but I'm just going to call it, I see, I've seen over the past few years that I've, I at first, the first exposure that I had to this was Mark Sargent's video Under the Dome. And, at first, of course, I thought, this is ridiculous. But then over the past few years, I had been seeing this grow on the internet and on YouTube, especially. So I have I just have a few questions. I don't know. You may be able to dispatch with them very quickly. But what I'd like to know is, and there's not got you here. I just want to know how this works. I know there's no consensus, but what is the nature of the sun or the light that actually moves around? Do you guys believe in the azimuthal equidistant projection model or
No,
no?
I don't. I can only speak for myself. I don't think that's a true
So,
representation of the
is this
world.
Nathan?
It's a good starting point to conceptualize things, though. But I think when you ask about the sun, for a flat earther, we're asking, can it possibly be nuclear fusion? Can it possibly be 93 million miles away? Is it possible for us to see anything 93 million miles away?
Mhm.
And I would turn to history and note that we didn't know it was nuclear fusion until Walt Disney told us on TV in 1953, I believe. So
Really?
it's really hard to prove that. Yeah.
Okay. So that's because that's what kind of I've found through doing some research on this is it's actually I think the layman on this, I think that the normal person that just kind of believes in the globe model that just kind of eats whatever is fed to them. I think they don't have sorry, I kind of lost my train of thought there for a second, but I think that they just think, well, it's very, very easy to prove that the Earth is a spheroid. And I still am a person that believes in the heliocentric model. But what I have come to understand is that it's not the easiest thing to prove that the Earth is actually a spheroid.
Right. And think about the one that rocks people that you're talking about for me, that works for me, is the fact that we've had thousands and thousands of flights east to west circumnavigation, which we can show on that map you're talking about, going around a disk basically, but never you'll find one anomaly trip north to south around the world.
Now, gosh, I had researched that a little bit, and there's a guy named Dick Smith. Are you familiar with Dick Smith?
Not by name.
I would actually, now I know I can't send you anything or screen share anything, but there's a guy named Dick Smith that supposedly did a north to south circumnavigation, and he has like a book on it. He supposedly did that. I don't have much more information than that, but I do have some.
All I would say to that again is just the preponderance of evidence, thousands and thousands of trips the other way
Mm-hmm.
versus, you know, this one anomalous trip you're going to be pointing at. You see what I'm saying?
No,
Worthy of looking at. I'll remember that.
I definitely
what was the name
understand.
again? Dick Smith.
Go ahead.
Did you say his name was Dick Smith? Because I'll certainly look that up.
Yes, Dick Smith. I'll go ahead and look that up. Yeah,
I will.
I'll try to look that up as well.
We had Michael Palin, who did he did a book on it called Pole to Pole, and I think it got televised as well. But they got very, very funny with him when he got to the top, the alleged North Pole. That was the bit that stuck in my mind. But you know, that was an alleged polar navigation, but he certainly didn't do that. But that's how it was, you know, positioned to the public.
But I think you hit on a good point when you said that the average round person, as we call her, person who believes in the ball, they think it's very easily dismissed. And then you ask them, well, what's your number one proof that you live on this spinning ball? And at best, you'll get a one-word answer like, well, sunsets. And you tell them, well, explain that dynamic, you know, whatever. But when you ask yourself, what is my proof? It is quite puzzling.
It's been interesting because I've, in a way, been kind of, I won't say in the middle, but I've been on kind of I've actually had to try to explain to some friends that, you know, because I explain to them that, you know, there are people out there that believe the earth is flat. And they're like, oh, that's ridiculous. You know, you have all these things, you have this and that and the other. And I've been surprised to see, you know, that they don't have a lot of evidence. And then when I try to actually tell them what the mindset is of the people that actually believe that it's flat, one of the things that I have been getting, and I don't know if you guys get a lot, is that they think that you guys don't really believe the earth is flat and that you guys are just trying to profiteer or whatever the case may be off of this. And I have actually said, no. I mean, there are people out there that actually believe the earth is flat. I saw the Nightline. I don't know if you guys saw the Nightline thing on the Flat Earth Convention here in the States in Raleigh, North Carolina.
Yeah, definitely. I
actually did a video on that.
What's your channel?
My channel is actually Armchair Skeptic.
I follow you. Yeah, you're awesome.
You've actually seen this?
I think. I mean, I sometimes get names wrong, but
I've started up. I have a few videos. I, you know, am more on the debunking side of things. That channel's been around for a while, but I haven't done anything on it till recently. So you know, definitely subscribe. I'm trying to be as honest as I can be, you know, just based upon my perception of the things.
I love your approach. I love your approach right now.
Yeah, because I just did a video. I just got done actually doing a video on the ISS and green screen. And
so let me tell you my big thing on the ISS.
Yeah,
is people are seeing this with their naked eye, right? And it's
absolutely
only a little bigger than a commercial airplane, but it's flying at 240 miles high. That tells you that they're lying to you. It's not in orbit. It is wherever, you know, it's in high altitude. You could not see it with your naked eye. You see what a plane looks like at 7 miles up. You know what I'm saying? It's like a thumbnail.
I heard that it was in a thermosphere, actually.
My point is if you think about how small a plane is at 7 miles up, and then think about how small it would be at 240 miles up, there's no way you would see it.
I just want to add something here because it kind of ties into your original point, Truth, which is, you know, how can people possibly believe this? And you're like, no, they do. They're not just out to profiteer. Well, for me, the best person who summarised this is by far and away Math Powerland. So the bottom line is, you will never get to see Earth as a sphere, as an individual. You won't get to see that point of view, ever. So to say, what's your proof it's a sphere? Well, the very easiest and obvious proof would be to see it as a sphere. But no one ever gets to do that. What we do get is told it's a sphere by people who say they have seen it as a sphere and present you images of it being as a sphere. But you personally don't get that point of view ever. So to assume that you know you're on a sphere when you can't see it and won't get to see it means it falls into one category: belief.
Yes. Well, and isn't that kind of the idea behind this zetetic astronomy? What have you heard of that?
Sure, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you know, basically that what you can't kind of physically experience, or what you can't experience vis-a-vis your own personal perception, you have to be skeptical of. And one of those things I think that is I don't know, it's I think there are other things that we take for granted that are actually real, like let's say viruses. It takes and I know that sounds a little weird for now, but just humor me for just 1 second. It takes a scanning electron microscope to actually view something as small as a virus. And so we're putting a lot of faith in the equipment and those things. And what a scanning electron microscope really does is it doesn't view the virus actually. It just bounces electrons off the virus, and it kind of creates an image based on those. So we're not really in the zetetic way, I would say, viewing a virus. So using the same logic, it would seem that the normal person or anybody can't actually view something as small as a virus or an atom. So, I mean, what do you guys think about that as far as, you know, in the very micro world, you know, are those things in question as well?
Well, no, because in the same way you can view the macroscopic world and get a good idea of what the stars look like. We talked earlier about telescopes. Obviously, we are looking at the stars. This does hold fascination for many flat earthers. So, but that isn't what your representations from NASA are like. So yes, you can have a look at what's up there, and the same thing applies on the microscopic level. But if somebody else is presenting something entirely different, then you must question it if you can't get that view. So on the microscopic level, if you to look at a virus and then you get a good idea of what it looks like through your telescope or through your whatever equipment that you're using to analyse it, and then somebody else on TV says it looks something totally different, then wouldn't you be suspicious of that particular presentation of a virus?
Yes.
The same applies to space.
Yes.
And we see this in viruses too. I mean, we're really talking about the politics of knowledge, and not everyone is looking at microscopes or even understanding, cellular growth and whatnot. Point being, the people that do it, convince us of vaccines, convince us of whatever. I won't get into the debates, but they are controlling that knowledge and giving us a perspective of what reality is, whether it is on the microscopic level or the macroscopic level.
Yeah, because I was very interested in that because, atoms, and then as far as things like atomic particles of the standard model, these are the things like called quarks that make up atoms. It really gets very, very, very small and very, very, and you're kind of relying on the same scientists at that level, in the Large Hadron Collider and in other colliders like
money
Fermi
sucking
Labs.
whores.
What's that?
Other money sucking.
Yeah. I mean, and that's definitely a position. And that's what I wanted to kind of know from you guys is that you guys, what do you think about those type of things, like the Large Hadron Collider and some of those scientific things that are pretty far out there? I would agree they're pretty far out there, and the layman has zero chance. I mean, we may be able to, as the layman, we may be able to actually look up into the sky with an amateur telescope and maybe see Saturn, right? And the rings around it. But what we cannot do is we cannot do some of the things they do at CERN. We can't. So we just kind of have to literally just totally take their word for it.
Oh, no.
So,
I don't
want to go too far off subject, but I think it's the same topic in a way, if you can understand that.
You mean I can't go out and observe the God particle for myself? Oh no.
No, absolutely. And I cannot either. And I cannot either. And so, so I just, that's just a wonder that I had. I just had a wonder, because I'm interested in just, seeing what your guys' viewpoints are on things. I've listened to a few of your broadcasts, and some of them are better than others. Some people ask better questions than others, but I'd like to actually just, not a debate. I really don't want to debate you guys. I just want to open a discussion and learn more, if I
mean,
can,
in your question,
about
I think you've summed it up.
Positions.
You've summed it up nicely in your question, though, in terms of CERN. My answers would be just a rephrasing of your questioning, because it sounds like you already get it. It's down to what you can confirm and what you have to take on trust or faith or belief, whatever word, interchangeable word you want to slip in there. So yeah, that's what it boils down to. But what I would expand on is that in terms of space, there is a potential, a longing. I certainly had it, maybe to a certain degree still do, to go up there, to explore in that direction. And that has to be explained to the populace, that you kind of can't, or you have to keep dangling the carrot and saying one day we'll get to Mars, one day we'll go back to the moon, but then kind of say, well, no, we've never promised that. So you've kind of got to keep this going. Whereas if you can control it on the microscopic level, what our world is and how it works, then I think you've got a better chance as a controlling elite to keep that well under wraps and keep it away from the common man in every respect. So no common man is going to build a hadron collider. So therefore, no common man will ever get to question their narrative in terms of God.
I tend to agree with that. So that's why I kind of brought up, and I don't know if I'm misusing the term zetetic astronomy. I think that has to do with our experiential, what we can actually personally experience. Am I wrong about that, or?
Yeah, I think that's pretty close.
Okay. So, to advance a little bit, you guys have heard these things before, but I would actually like to get your guys's, because Arwen was telling me, when we did our Skype, and I would like to actually I would love to interview him. He's very interesting. I'd love to interview him, and we're working that out right now. But I would love to know just some things about, like, you've heard of the Qantas flights from Sydney to Johannesburg, right?
Yeah, who's involved with those?
Who?
John Travolta.
The Scientologist, really?
John Travolta's also going to be doing.
I
think he's also down for doing a polar circumnavigation via the poles. So he's in the news at the moment. I mean, these are the kind of puppets that they use.
Really?
It's just amazing.
I'm going to look that up. That's interesting.
Very.
Because I'm definitely not on John Travolta's wagon. Let's just say that much.
You're not into John Travolta? Okay, fair enough.
Well, no, I'm not into. He's a Scientologist, correct?
A lot of them are, yeah. That's a particular cross section of that part of the Hollywood elite. A lot of them are Scientologists.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't want to get into bashing that too much, but with things like Xenu and things like these very, very crazy other world experiences, which I think are actually, I think we probably maybe be able to both agree on the fact that those are a little bit more crazy than even maybe some of the NASA stuff.
No, I think it's equally crazy. I mean, their world revolves around a heliocentric world, so there's a surprising absence of Scientologists challenging us, because what flat earthers are proposing absolutely obliterates their religion. So the two definitely go hand in hand.
That's interesting. Okay, yeah, that is actually true. What you're saying is very true. That would kill them. With the DC-9s coming in and dropping. Anyway, I don't want to get into all that, but I'm just saying, if you did destroy the heliocentric model, that would pretty much be the nail in the coffin for Scientology. So that is true. I didn't know he was in the news about this, actually. What I would like to just, if I could ask you another question or a few more questions. I don't know if you're pressed for time now or not, but
Not all. About half an hour left.
Nathan, I think you said that you don't believe in the azimuthal equidistant model. Is that correct?
If you were to ask me, is the azimuthal equidistant projection a true and accurate representation of our world, I would say no. It's a useful tool,
so
and it
in
has
your
its
best
purposes.
words, what do you think is, if you could actually display a representation of the world, what do you think is the best representation of the flat Earth world in your view?
I don't think we have one, so I think every single map has been presented by the people who present this deception. And the azimuthal equidistant projection, if you want to look at it in one way, is no different to a globe. It's a global projection. The way it works is it's accurate from the centre out, hence the name. But that, as a world map, I think Bruce summed it up. It's like, yes, it's quite a useful tool to conceptualise how a flat Earth would work, but is it an accurate world map? Absolutely not.
Okay, so I can respect that. I can respect that because you guys, I think you guys are taking, no, I don't know, but as the longitudinal lines go down in the azimuth equidistant, world, the roots start getting longer and longer around the southern hemisphere. And so have you guys kind of thought about that, and that doesn't quite work, so maybe there's another model that actually works? Have you brought that into, has that been an influencing factor at all in
Absolutely.
your thought process?
Yeah, I've spent months, if not years, with Martin Liedtke, shout out to Flat Earth British, who, he had the nickname Mappy Martin, and we even went to the Mapper Monday to have a look at these things and examine them, because in the vain hope that you might find a flat Earth model somewhere, an accurate representation, there just isn't one. That's the bottom line.
Sorry, I've lost you for a second. Are you there?
Yeah, I'm still here. I was just saying that as far as I am concerned, if there's a deception, and I absolutely believe that there is, then the people who are producing this information, i.e. the maps, aren't going to give you an accurate one. They're going to give you distorted representations, and that's what we get in various different forms and formats. So yes, the azimuthal equidistant projection stretches things at the edges, so if you're to use it not from the centre, which is, if you're planning out that route that you discussed, that flight, then yeah, you're no longer using the map as it's intended to be used. So it's going to distort things in such a way that it's going to be wildly inaccurate. And it is when you use it in the way it wasn't deemed to be used. But is there an accurate one? No, I would stand by that to my death. There's not going to be one. I don't think anyone will ever find one. The only one that I know of that could be conceived of one is kept as I've forgotten the word, it's like kept as a database, and you can pull from it and get little sections from it, and that's what the military use. It does have a title, I'll look it up. I'm not...
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I've forgotten the name of it, but I'm in no doubt if you could get all of those pieces, you could pull them off as an individual piece, and it's flat, obviously, as they all are. You could put it together and have an accurate world map, and it would work and scale, and all the distances would be accurate. But we're never going to get that. They're never going to produce it as a map. And even to this day, it isn't a map. It's not a world map. It's just a reference system that you can pull information from to produce a map on the fly that will be accurate, that you can use in the military to find your way around. And those are updated as well. So, they're not like they're consistent. In some ways, they are subject to updates.
Yeah, I've seen plenty of versions of maps out there, especially if you go just online and look up azimuth equidistant maps. There's actually a lot of them, isn't there?
You can make your own. I mean, you can project an azimuthal projection. An equidistant projection can be projected from any point. So, Chippy the Chipmunk once did a video about a year ago about the Air Force One with JFK on it, and it had a picture of another equidistant projection, but I think it was centered at Texas. So it looked very different to what people are familiar with. But in terms of how that map would work, it would still be accurate from the centre out. That's what an equidistant projection is. So that map is just as valid for its uses as the one that's centred at the North Pole, or the one that's centred at the South Pole, or the one that's centred at England. It doesn't matter. You can centre that map anywhere you like.
Okay. That's fair enough. That's actually fair enough. Is it possible to see a curvature at all or experience a curvature at all on a flat Earth? Now, I know that sounds a little oxymoronic, but the reason I ask that is because I've seen a few YouTube videos, and I know there's a lot of stuff on YouTube, but I've seen there's been a couple Red Bull stratospheric I would say jumps from hot air balloons. And it appears that they're seeing, when they get up in the stratosphere, that they're seeing a curvature, kind of a clear curvature in the Earth. And I didn't know if you guys have seen any of that or what you thought of that. If you thought that was a hoax, or, because those are civilian programs. Those are not programs by the government. So I didn't know what you thought of that.
I don't know. As I say, without experiencing it myself, when people put those videos on, I cringe because it's not verifiable by me. It's not my video, so it's hard to comment on. Is my honest answer. It's not verifiable, so I don't yet necessarily use those things as proof of anything.
Okay.
Other people do all day long, and they're welcome to, if you want to take someone else's footage and say that proves the Earth is a curve. What I would say, though, in terms of your original question, has anybody seen curvature? Well, if there is curvature, there's a mathematical equation that dictates how much curvature we should see based on being on a ball that is 24,900 miles in circumference. And this is depicted. So Chris Monk was a surveyor. That was his trade. That's what he did. He built things on Earth and use these reference points, these geodetic surveying points, and you find that point, reference back to it, and stick a stake in the ground. Now, if let's say you're 100 metres above or below it, you then reference your single location to 0, so you don't have to constantly minus off 100 feet or add on 100 feet relative to the geodetic surveying location. But once you've stuck that stick in the ground, you then level your transit. You then assess the land around you and make sure that everything is absolutely level on the horizontal. So once you've leveled that piece of equipment, you've leveled your transit. If you were to spin it round and around in a circle, you would never see it deviate. It would never go up or down. Well, the fact of the matter is, if Earth had a curvature, it would be measurable from the ground. In other words, when a surveyor did that and twisted the gravitometer or whatever the hell they call it, that piece of equipment around and looked through the lens, they would see and observe a curve. They don't at any altitude that they build at. Essentially, once they've got their mark on that reference system, the WGS84, once they've got their single location, they assess the land as a flat plane. That's how you survey things. Hi, Scotty. How you doing?
Storm, do you want to say hello?
Hey, how's it going, Nathan?
Good to have you here.
Hey, can I elaborate on that Red Bull jump point?
Go ahead.
I'm going to turn you up.
Yeah, well, if you look at the footage outside of the supposed hot air balloon that he's in, you can clearly see this curve as an fisheye lens. But once you look at video footage, which isn't distorted with fisheye lens within the air balloon is, or the vehicle is in, it's a flat horizon.
It's what now? Sorry about that.
It's a flat horizon. When you look at the footage from inside, the thing he was using to jump out of on the Red Bull jump, but when they show the footage of outside it, it's curved. So it's obviously a fisheye lens.
That's what I've heard. I've actually heard that these are fisheye lenses. Now, the only thing that I have, I've tried to go to Google, which is the only thing I can actually go to at this point, and look up fisheye lens photography, because there's a lot supposedly, for respect to the channel, supposedly there is a live feed from the ISS all the time, right? On YouTube. And what I think I perceive, and this is probably different from what you perceive, but when I look at pictures of fisheye lens photography under Google Images, it tends to distort not only things that are further away, but it tends to distort things that are very close in as well. And I have not seen any evidence, especially when it comes to the ISS walks that I see, of distortion of anything but the further away object, which is the Earth.
Oh, really? I can
Because-
find you
that-
dozens of examples of the
Hollywood-
solar panels
Go ahead.
being bent round with the curvature. But again, I would say the same thing, which is I don't necessarily take it as proof either way. So no disrespect to you, Scotty, but when Scotty says things like the Felix Baumgarten, the door opens and you look out with a standard camera and you've got a flat horizon, I disregard all of that. I mean, from a preponderance of evidence perspective, you've got lots of other cameras on that shuttle that do show it curved. So to take the single perspective, which I haven't captured from inside that capsule, for me just seems like I'm lying to myself if I use that as a proof. For me, a much better proof is if there is curve, it is on the ground. We should be able to measure it. In fact, it must be measurable if it's there, but it isn't. That's the bottom line.
Yeah.
The whole point in the surveying system is to make you think you're starting out on a sphere and then flattening it out so that it'll match reality when you actually survey things. And as we all well know, or should all well know, things are surveyed flat. Hi, Pete, is that the real you or not? Say a quick hello. Pete, can you hear us? So yeah, basically, my challenge would be to anybody who thinks they live on a sphere, and there's a lot of them that are literally referencing the system used by surveyors. Well, those surveyors are extremely accurate in their measurements because they're building things. Therefore, if you want to assert there's a curvature to Earth, find me a surveyor who has surveyed it. Simple.
Now, I actually thought of something that I would like to do myself. Let's not give too much away, but I don't really care, actually. Obviously I live in the United States of America. I live in a state called Utah. You guys maybe have heard of it. And we have a very large lake here called the Great Salt Lake. And what I was actually want to ask you guys, because you guys have, how far, because on the Great Salt Lake, there are vantage points that I can go to and do my own, and actually do my own study, but I'm not a surveyor, you know? So kind of what I'm wondering is if you could give me, you know, if you guys might be able to give me some advice. I want to go out and kind of look, you know, into the distance on the Great Salt Lake. I have about 40 miles where I can look, and there's an island across that way. Do you guys have any advice on that in how I can actually, you know, as a layman, take a look at that and maybe be able to kind of make my own assessment?
Sure. Let me have this one, Nath. Essentially, over a lake, it's non-tidal. I'm assuming it's a non-tidal lake.
Yeah,
It's not a salt lake, is it? Is it fresh water?
it's salt. It's salt.
Okay.
It's the Great
so
Salt Lake.
that can have a little bit of tide. But listen, I'm gonna have to grab this call. Nath, do you want to carry on? Sorry.
Okay.
I wasn't really keeping up with the conversation. I'm really sorry.
Sorry. I just was wondering how I could make my own observations. I have an opportunity because I live near a very large lake in the United States to, I think, make an observation possibly of the curvature of the Earth, whether or not it does or doesn't exist. And I was just wondering, you know, that's why my first question kind of was,
Okay.
were you guys going out and making your own observations on the Isle of Man using spotting scopes or whatnot, or were you guys just kind of taking, you know, things that were on the internet? Because I would like to make my own personal observations, and so go
Look,
ahead there.
I've got an answer for you, but I just want to say a quick hello to our new guest. So how you doing? We've got Scott. How you doing? Different Scott.
Doing great, Nathan.
Good to have you here. I'll get to you in a second. So, just to answer your question, as I said earlier, if we live on a sphere 24,900 miles in circumference, then curvature is observable everywhere. Everywhere. From the ground. It becomes more pronounced as you go up in altitude. It's as simple as that. So, where is the curvature? Everywhere. Equally everywhere, from every single position on Earth. And it should be easy to capture. So, going to these lakes, and no, as far as I'm concerned, you should be able to capture it looking out your window. But that's my attitude. If the Earth is a sphere, it's a sphere everywhere.
But it isn't easier on a lake because a lake is very flat. So it's easier to observe.
So is the world that we see.
Rather than flat land, which is lumpy and has some mountains and whatnot on it.
Sure, I appreciate that, but I mean, there's a video out there called A Mountain of Evidence as an example, where a guy went up at altitude, very high altitude, up a mountain, and assessed the land around him, and was still able to extrapolate that there was no curvature from there. And he's up a mountain, he's got no flat surfaces anywhere in his view, none. But that's my point. If the world's a sphere, it's a sphere everywhere. Therefore, everything should be dropping away from us from ground level and get more pronounced as you go up. Obviously, if you're going to accept that if you go up far enough it turns into a complete ball that you can see, that would necessitate that as you rise in altitude it becomes more spherical as you go up. Now, by the virtue of the maths of a sphere 24,900 miles in circumference, you would see a curve at ground level. Therefore, as you rise it would get more curvy. So you should see it everywhere you go. You don't. And you're looking for places that are particularly flat to see why there isn't curvature. It should be everywhere.
I think that's a pretty good point. Can I go back to the ISS for a second?
Sure.
Go ahead.
When you see ISS footage, why isn't the Earth moving for?
What's that? Sorry, why isn't the Earth
moving? When you see ISS footage, the Earth's not moving; it's just still.
The only explanation that I think I could come up with here is that the Earth is a very, very large mass, and that the larger the mass, say the Earth is spinning at 1,000 miles per hour, right? I forgot I forgot what they said the circumference of the Earth was, but I think what the explanation is of that, I think I've heard, is that, well, sorry, there's a couple things. One, the ISS is in orbit around the Earth, but sorry, that's not it. What I have heard, what I think I've heard is that it's hard to see that. It's hard to see that because the Earth is so large. Now, that may be a ridiculous explanation. I'm just trying to do the best I can. I'm just trying to say I think what I've heard is because the Earth is so massive, it is more difficult to see it spin because it takes 24 whole hours for the Earth to spin all the way around. So you're not going to see this thing just whirling around. It's going to take, and if I could do math, quick math, which I'm not going to be able to do, but it's going to take a certain amount of time for the Earth to rotate a certain amount of degrees. And those are probably going to be, not significant when you just look at the ISS footage. What do you think about that?
What do I think about that? I think it's a bunch of rubbish.
The
Earth never moves. You can watch ISS footage 24 hours a week. It never moves. It stays still. It's just like that argument. Oh, fucking the moon's fucking orbiting. It's like rotating around us. It's fucking one side. You can see it's not fucking moving. What are you talking about?
Like,
well, no, the moon doesn't rotate.
Yeah. Oh, they say it does.
No, the scientists say the moon rotates.
They say it keeps orbit with us. They say it's moving. So what? Are you saying it's not moving?
No, yes, the moon is showing one side of itself around us, but the moon takes. And I'm not a scientist, guys, but doesn't the moon take a month to kind of do its whole cycle?
I guess so. Well, as they say.
Yeah. So I mean, that's going to be
that accidentally.
negligible. I think some of these things, and this is just my
Just like refraction,
opinion. I have not tested this, but I think, just on the fly, the spins we see and the movements we see in space are going to be negligible to the naked eye unless we do kind of a fast forward on things. Now, when we do view ISS, we do see that over different portions of the Earth at different times. That is true.
And have you seen the footage of the Red Bull jump? You can see what fucking Mexico or whatever it is, and it looks like it's half the Earth or something. It looks so enlarged. It looks
I
ridiculous.
noticed that.
Yeah.
I did see that comment down there, and it does look rather large. I don't know, I will take, I'm actually going to kind of take Nathan's point on this as somebody that I feel like believes in the globe, where I'm going to say I don't have all the answers, and I'm not exactly sure in the stratosphere how large the bodies of land are supposed to look. I don't know. I actually don't know. I think that it's very difficult for us to know. I think that's fair, isn't it, Nathan? If you heard what I said, but
Well, difficult, I'd say impossible.
Shout out to Ute, A4, and PJ.
Well, guys, I really appreciate being able to talk to you guys, in a respectful way, and just being able to ask you guys questions. It seems like you guys are really trying to find out what's going on here. I come from a different standpoint where I'm really doing the same. I'm a long range shooter. I live in the States, so we love our guns, right? And I have a very high powered rifle. My friend does too. And we were going to actually possibly try this summer to demonstrate the Coriolis effect via long range shooting, which is still negligible. Go ahead.
I just said I'd love to see it.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to try it. So supposedly, if this effect does in fact exist, if me and him put ourselves, and we have this kind of land out here in Utah, but if we put ourselves inside of a 2,000 yard square, what we could do is we could shoot east to west, and then we could shoot north to south 1,000 yards apiece. And what I've seen on YouTube, at least, if we can make those shots accurately, we should see a consistent, like if we're shooting north, depending on the Earth's spin, we should see that go right or left. If we're shooting south, we should see it go right or left. If we're shooting east to west, we should see it go high and go low. And I'm wondering if I can demonstrate that in a way. Is there anything, is there any standard of evidence that you guys might take a look at and go, that's interesting? Is there anything like that?
All of it.
Well, I did see a video of this bloke. Supposedly he looked like he was in the army, and he had a rifle, and he was explaining the Coriolis effect. That's about it. He didn't know doing the experiments. He just said it's real, and that's it. And you should believe it. Oh, sorry.
That's ridiculous. Yeah, I mean,
Sorry,
you're right. That's ridiculous. I mean, you just can't just, because a lot of the boulder dash that's actually been taught to us in school is actually wrong. They actually, I was talking with Arwen, and Arwen was, saying they teach you in schools that, the toilets flush different ways, right? In the different hemispheres, right? I don't know if you've heard of that, but
yeah,
that's also a myth.
Put that
that's also a myth.
It absolutely is a myth. You can actually look it up on mainstream scientific websites now. That is a myth, and I think that's a myth. In my opinion, that is teachers teaching in a very kind of weak and lazy way. It's the same thing as when back in the day they tried to teach us that you know, in 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue, and he's the one that figured out that there was, you know, a round Earth, when in fact that's not true. And we know that's not true whatsoever. You know,
Yeah, we know
the
it's
closest
not
thing
a
may have
globe.
been Magellan. May
You're
have
right.
been
We know
Magellan.
it's
I'm
flat.
not going to hang my hat on that, but I'm just saying that I think we can all agree that in the educational system, there have been some myths that have been propagated that have come forth to not be true. And that is probably one of the reasons why we see what we see now, as far as questioning.
I have a quick question for you about. I mean, I've been listening intently to what you've been saying, and you just said then about the toilets flushing different ways in different hemispheres, and how it is indeed a myth. And to quote you, you said mainstream science now accepts that it was a myth. But
Yeah.
what would your position be if mainstream science did not accept that it was a myth, and it was considered to be silly by people that believed in heliocentricity because they still claimed it to be one of their proofs? Because
I would take another look at that. I had a friend who I had to explain that to just the other day. He actually thought, well, toilets, you know, what's wrong with these people? Toilets, you know, this is what they do. And I said, no, this is not what they do. You can look
No,
it
no,
up
what
on Snopes and all that stuff. This is a myth. It's not what they do.
No, forgive me. What I meant was it
Sorry.
takes. Well, the point I was getting at was that because it now appears in mainstream science, it's now not considered to be a myth. Whereas before it was in mainstream science, that would have been one of the proofs. And now that's been dismissed as by mainstream science. It's now not considered a proof. But it still didn't change the fact that it didn't happen. So my question is, does it take that it needs to be on mainstream science before it's now accepted to be true? Or is the fact that it's true itself, in itself, its own proof?
That's now I'm going to answer that in a few ways. That's actually typically what is accepted. And the reason why is because in mainstream science, what is typically accepted is the best explanation for any given phenomenon. Now, this is what they say. Okay. So let me preface that with that. The best given explanation, the one that works the best, is probably the one that is the truth. So when mainstream science talks about, when they talk about, well, I wish I can come up with a different example, but a heliocentric model to the world, they, with all the things that they say they observe with gravity and Newtonian physics and the theory of relativities and these things like that, they think that this better explains the nature of reality than does a flat earth model or something like that. Now, if people in the flat earth community can come up with better explanations about, you know, what describes, you know, because it's not just, you know, the fact that the earth, and I know this is going to sound strange, but not just the fact that the earth, we might be able to actually make some observations that the earth is not round, but there are other things out there as well as what is moving, you know, what is moving the moon? What is moving the sun? What is the sun powered by? These theories, I don't think, are really there in the flat earth model because it's evolving still. And so the best explanation vis-a-vis science is still the accepted explanation because it best explains our reality, even though possibly some of those things might not be true. Does that make sense?
Can I just
Sure, of course
can I
it does.
just address that? Sorry, sleeping. Well, I think you're absolutely correct. That's why the Isle of Man becomes so incredibly important going forward. Because until now, what you've said holds true. You need to present an alternative that is more readily acceptable or more accurately describes what you are looking at. And that's precisely what we're aiming for with the Isle of Man footage, to provide that, to say, here's one model, your model, the model of Earth as a sphere, here's how it fails. Here's another model, a model of a flat Earth. Here's where it succeeds in every respect.
Now, I don't know how much time we have left, and I don't want to hog everything up, but I would actually say I encourage you guys to do as much research as you possibly can, because I think the truth about our surroundings is, you know, and, you know, just reality itself. The truth is the highest thing in the universe. I think the truth, whatever you want to call it, but I think the truth is the highest thing. So if you guys can come up with a better model, if you guys are working on that, all power to you. All power to you. And I support it. And I would love to, ask, more questions, maybe not now, but later, when I study this some more. Nathan, if I could ask you, where can I study more about the Isle of Man and the things that you guys have observed? It's been vexing because I've tried to get on some of your older flat earth debates, not on the panel, but I've tried to just look at them kind of while I'm at work and watch them. And I don't see sometimes I don't see a lot. There's a lot of people that kind of come in and make fun of things and pollute the airwaves. And I think this is an important discussion to have. I do.
Hey, Nathan, are you doing a hangout after this or?
I do them daily. This one will end and the next one will be tomorrow.
Okay.
So you're planning to hang out tomorrow, Nathan, at this time, or?
Just time, yeah.
Well, if there's nothing else going on, I might do one after if people want to move over, when this is done. If you're not doing one next, of course, anytime soon.
I think the best one to view is Flat Earth Debate 77, the one that's called Ding Ding, and then watch the next 3 or 4, 5 from there on. That's where most of the content was hotly disputed the most. And then it stops at around about 97. So anything between 77 and 97.
Ding, ding. 77, Ding Ding.
Ding Ding, yeah, that's the one that was the landmark one. From there, the next 10 or 12 were huge.
Great. Well, great. I would actually love to study that. I don't want to take up any more of you guys' time. I appreciate the discussion. And I hope you appreciate that. I'm just searching, like any other sentient being out here. So.
Well, you sound like a really
lovely conversation. Thank you very much for joining.
Didn't you join weren't you on the show a couple of weeks back?
I was, and I was not my best self.
Okay. But there is a couple of guys in Utah already doing videos across the Salt Lake.
Really?
So if you want to go on YouTube, they're easy to find.
Oh, well, thank you so much for telling me that. I will actually do that. Now, I definitely don't want to go waste my time. That's a lot of time and effort to do that.
Yeah, you should check out the guy called Taboo Conspiracy. Right. He's done a few. Some of his videos are around about 12 months old. He did Bedford level experiments verified. He did lake experiments at 5 and at 8 miles, and there was no curvature. So check out Taboo Conspiracy. Definitely one of the best videos on lake observations.
To be conspiracy or
taboo TABOO space, and then the word conspiracy.
Taboo. Okay, Taboo Conspiracy. Okay.
Taboo Conspiracy. Yeah, he's a really good channel.
Okay, well, thank you so much for having me on, and thank you so much.
And with that, I'm going to say, first and foremost, a huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of the live audience for tuning in and hopefully sharing this show. If you've not done so already, be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.